You can travel for back in time here. A secret place. Where shall we go today? The seeker of the blue bird that shines with moonlight. He never left. The village bathed in moonlight. The young man's name was Aya. He had never, not once since birth, stepped outside his village. There was no need to. The village, located at the western edge of the world, was small, quiet, and lacked nothing. During the day, the wind passed through the fields, and at night, the moon always rose. Aya grew up without ever doubting that this was the normal way of the world. A night with the moon. When night fell, the village was wrapped in a soft silver glow. The rooftops, the roads, even the shadows of the villages were gently outlined by the moonlight. Aya loved looking at the moon. He didn't know why. Just gazing at it brought a quiet calm to his heart. One night, as he stared at the moon as usual, he suddenly felt a question arise. Why is it so bright? A question that had never formed in his mind before. Why he had never known the outside world. In the village, few spoke of the world beyond. Travelers never came. Messengers never arrived. There were maps, but their edges were drawn vaguely. They say people used to come and go. But no one knew more than that. But everyone was happy because they loved their home. Aya had walked to the edge of the village. Yet somehow, he could not step beyond it. There was no boundary line. Only, the moonlight didn't reach there. Since childhood, he had found this mysterious. He finally left. The old woman's house. At the edge of the village, an old woman lived alone. The villagers called her the storyteller. She only spoke on nights when the moon shone. Aya, drawn as if by fate, visited her house. I knew you would come, the old woman said, as soon as she saw him. The tale of the blue bird. Sitting in front of the bonfire, the old woman quietly began her story. There is a blue bird that shines with the same light as the moon. Those who see it learn the secrets of this world and touch their destiny. But no one has ever truly seen it. At least, no one has returned alive. Aya held his breath. But there was one. The old woman continued. Many centuries ago, in a land far to the east, someone was said to have seen the blue bird. That person belonged to an ancient bloodline of the Knightly Kingdom, and eventually vanished from history. Only their name remained, as a story passed down through time. The small tapestry. The old woman stood and opened an old box. Inside was a small tapestry. When touched by moonlight, Its blue threads glimmered softly. "This belonged to that person," she said. When Aya touched it, his heart trembled violently. He did not know why, but he was certain that he was meant to receive it. The village's secret. Finally, the old woman said, "Have you ever wondered why only this village is bathed in moonlight?" Aya could not answer. The old woman smiled. "The answer lies outside the village." That night, Aya could not sleep. Every thought of the outside made his chest tighten. Yet, strangely, he also felt calm. He had to go. Departure. Before dawn, Aya left the village. Without telling anyone. Without looking back. The moment he stepped away, the moonlight vanished. The world was wrapped in a quiet darkness. It was not evil. It was only the beginning of his trial. Aya, holding the tapestry to his chest, walked eastward. The blue bird had not yet appeared. But even then, the fate of the world had already begun to move. Endless night. Departure to the world without a moon. How far had Eel walked since leaving the village? When he turned back, the moon was no longer there. More than that, the sky itself was clouded, as if rejecting something unseen. In the village, the moon always rose at night. He had never once doubted that this was the natural order of the world. But now, the moon was nowhere to be found. The land that lost its light, even during hours that should have been daytime. The land lay in dimness. The sunlight did reach the earth. And yet, something essential, something that could be called brightness, was missing. The grass swayed, but its shadows were indistinct. The wind blew, but carried no warmth. Eel thought to himself, was the world always this quiet? It was not fear he felt. Rather, it was the uneasy sensation of being watched by something vast. One who crossed the boundary. Now that he had left the village, Eel was beginning to understand. That village had been protected by the moonlight. Why it had been protected? By whom? And for what purpose? Those answers still had no shape. And yet, the tapestry at his chest would occasionally glow with a faint blue light, as if whispering, "You are on the right path." The forest of elder fog. Before long, the mist grew thick. The overlapping shadows of trees narrowed his vision. The forest of elder fog. On the village map, it bore only a brief note. The forest of losing one's way. The fog swallowed sound and stole all sense of distance. Trees just a few steps ahead appeared as though they stood somewhere else entirely. Eel stopped many times. And each time, the tapestry shimmered faintly. That light did not so much show the way. It seemed to tell him, "Do not stop." Darkness is not an enemy. Deep within the forest, Eel sensed something move. It might have been a beast. It might have been a person. But it did not attack. The darkness did not reject him. It was simply testing him. Would he be swallowed by fear? Or would he trust and move forward? Eel clenched his empty hand, the hand that held no sword, and kept walking. A faint glow. The stone-speaking road. Beyond the forest, the ground beneath his feet turned to stone. An ancient road, worn down by countless footsteps. The stone-speaking road. When the wind blew, the stones murmured softly. It was not sound. It was memory. Those who had once walked this path, knights who served their king, travelers who carried wishes in their hearts, and those who never returned. Eel's steps grew heavy. Even so, the road led only forward. Thoughts turned toward the far east. Gazing toward the end of the road, Eel recalled the old woman's words. Those who have seen the blue bird have touched the fate of the world. Hundreds of years ago, there had been only one. That person was said to be tied to the ancient bloodline of the kingdom of knights. But even the kingdom was not the destination. Beyond Astral, a place remembered only by name. Eel did not yet understand its meaning. Still, something deep within his chest was unmistakably calling to him. Before the starless ridge. At last, a shadow appeared on the horizon. Black. Sharp. A chain of jagged ridges. The starless ridge. There were no stars in the sky. No moon. And yet, it was not complete darkness. The tapestry shone brighter than ever before. Its blue threads pulsed, as if alive. So this is it. Eel understood. This journey was no longer one meant for returning. The moment it becomes an adventure. When he left the village, this had been a journey of inquiry. But now, it was something else. Something at the very edge of the world was beginning to choose Eel. He took one step onto the starless ridge. Behind him, the stone-speaking road fell into silence, without a sound, deeper into the moonless world. The blue bird was still nowhere to be seen. And yet, from this moment on, Eel had undeniably stepped into the fate of the world itself. Blue bird. The starless ridge. The starless ridge was a harsh mountain range. Layer upon layer of jagged peaks rose like blades. Wild winds surged up from the valleys below, constantly obstructing any attempt to move forward. The mountains were high, yet the sky felt oppressively low. Clouds hung heavy, as if crushed downward, and no stars could be seen anywhere. The moment Eel set foot in this place, he understood. This was not a land meant to be crossed. The mountain that rejects the stars. It was impossible to tell day from night. Time should have been passing. Yet neither sun nor moon ever appeared. And the light remained a dull, ashen grey. Rocks were piled at unnatural angles. The footing fragile. One misstep could mean death. And yet, strangely, there was no sign of beasts. No birdsong. No sound of insects' wings. This mountain range was not rejecting life. It was selecting. Eel sensed this instinctively. A path that devours doubt. As he continued along the ridge, his sense of direction began to dissolve. What should have been an ascent had somehow become a descent. When he turned back, the path he had walked had already melted into shadow and vanished. I can't go back. The realization settled quietly in his chest. There was fear, but no urge to flee. Here, hesitation itself was punishment. The resonance of the tapestry. Eel stopped and drew out the small tapestry from his chest. In the moonlit village, its blue threads had only glimmered softly. Here, they pulsed as if alive. This was not a light that showed the way. It was a light that resonated with the mountain. Faint patterns surfaced along the rock face. Ancient engravings. Eroded and nearly erased. Yet unmistakably shaped by human hands. Once, there had been those who crossed this range. And many who had not. The question. The wind intensified. A ringing sound echoed deep within his head. It was not a voice. Yet it was a clear question. Why do you proceed? What do you seek? Eel could not answer at once. The secrets of the world. The blue bird. Fate. All were true. Yet none were complete. Without an answer, he took a step forward. In that instant, the rock beneath his foot gave way. Hidden truth. The trail. His body fell weightless through the air. He grabbed the rock instinctively, clenching with enough force to split his nails. Below lay a bottomless darkness. If he fell, neither bones nor name would remain. In that moment, Eel understood. This mountain was not testing strength. It was measuring resolve. Did he wish to live? To return? Or to go on? The memory of the moon. Eel pressed the tapestry against the rock. The blue threads shone brighter than they ever had before. It resembled moonlight. Yet it was not the moon itself. It was the memory of the moon. The true light that once illuminated the world. The engravings on the rock resonated. And a path emerged. Only faintly, but unmistakably. A place that could be crossed was revealed. The mountain had acknowledged Eel. beyond the ridge. He moved carefully, and at last crossed the ridge. His view opened wide, and far in the distance, lights appeared. Evenly arranged lights. Walls. Towers. The Night Kingdom of Aldinas. A nation built by human will. Yet Eel did not yet know that this kingdom, too, was incomplete. An omen. At the summit of the ridge, Eel looked back. There were still no stars. But then, within the clouds, a faint blue light streaked across the sky. It was not a bird, not a shadow, a sign without wings. The blue bird had not yet appeared. And yet, unmistakably, the world had begun to draw Eel toward its center. Eel took a deep breath and began walking toward the kingdom of nights. Where is the moon? The Night Kingdom of Aldinas. Beyond the starless ridge. The first thing Eel sensed was the presence of people. It was different from the silence of the mountains. An air filled with breath and life, carried on the wind, were the scent of iron and the smoke of burning fires. Below him spread stone-built walls and countless lights glowing within. The Night Kingdom of Aldinas. Here, human will had unmistakably gathered. A kingdom without the moon. There was no moon in the skies of the kingdom either. Even at night, the sky remained only dark, with no stars to be seen. The streets were lit by torches and lampposts, and by the fires burning within the castle. The people lived as if this were natural. Eel felt a quiet unease. No one longed for the moon. A nation of nights. Aldinas was a land of order. The knights valued discipline. The people trusted their king. And conflict was kept to a minimum. And yet, it was not perfect. Old repairs scarred the city walls. And in the faces of the people lingered a tension that could not be put into words. They were protected, yet afraid of something. Eel sensed it instinctively. This kingdom, too, existed within the distortions of the world. An invitation to the castle. At the city gate, Eel was stopped. The reason was the tapestry at his chest. Its blue threads glimmered faintly, resonating with the stone of the castle walls. When the knights saw it, their expressions changed. Where did you obtain that mark? Eel spoke of the village and the old woman. The knights exchanged glances, then quietly nodded. The king will see you. An ancient bloodline. Deep within the castle, in a small hall hidden from public view, Eel met an elderly man. He was not the king. This country has not had a king for hundreds of years. And yet, he carried an authority equal to one. His name was Celios, a member of the oldest bloodline, serving the royal family of Aldinas, the inheritor of the blue memory. It has been a long time. Chosen one of the moon. Eel was left without words. I will bring it back. The only man who saw the blue bird. Celios began to speak. Hundreds of years ago, there had been a knight within the royal house of Aldinas. His name was Lumiel, fiercely loyal, peerless with the sword, and more sincere than any other. But one night, he saw something. A blue bird, radiating moonlight. It was not a blessing. It was a revelation. Lumiel touched the secrets of the world, and then fell silent. Why it was never spoken? Why was this never passed down? At Eel's question, Celios answered quietly. Because to speak of it would break the world. The blue bird is not a symbol of the moon. It is a fragment of the moon itself. Long ago, the true moon that once illuminated the world equally was shattered by a certain event. Its fragments took the form of a bird and began to wander the world. And those who see it come to know the truth of the world. The meaning of the village. Why was Eel's village bathed in moonlight? Because it was the place where the last moonlight was preserved. After the world was swallowed by darkness, the moon's light remained only in a handful of lands. To protect it, the people lost their memories and severed all ties with the outside world. Eel was born as the one meant to leave, the one who would go beyond. A sign before the choice. Lumiel traveled beyond astral. Celios said. He carried with him a single feather of the blue bird and never returned. No one knows what he did there. But one thing is certain. The world has not yet ended. The shadow of the kingdom. That night, Eel stood atop the castle walls. A sky without a moon. People living by borrowed light. They were protected. But nothing at the root had changed. Darkness itself is not evil. But a world without balance will eventually collapse. Eel clenched the tapestry in his hand. The blue threads, quietly, yet unmistakably, pointed east. Toward the next land. Aldinas is not the destination. This place was meant for understanding. The choice lies ahead. Eel understood then. He was no longer a traveler seeking answers. He was now one who carried the fate of the world, and beyond Astral. At last, that distant place began to carry the weight of reality. The Silent Kingdom. Preparing for the coming time. The sound of a horn echoed through the kingdom. It was not loud, nor heroic. Low and long. It sank deep into the chest. It announced that the time had come. The night shadows stir. Outside the walls of the night kingdom of Aldinas, darkness moved. It was neither wind nor mist. Shadows shaped like humans. The Ryue, once people. Those who had lost the light. Forced to remain in the shadows. When torchlight neared, their faces twisted in pain. Light was agony to them. Still, they did not stop. A kingdom ready for the time. On the castle walls, the knights stood in formation. Not a hurried defense driven by fear, but armor polished, swords sharpened. Lines of men quiet and disciplined. This kingdom had been waiting for the day the moonlight returned, for the day shadows would move. Celios stood at the gate, gazing over the field. "Do not fear," he said quietly, unwavering. "This is not the battle's end. It is the beginning." Eel's role. Eel carried no sword. Not because of fear. His role was elsewhere. Celios placed a hand on his shoulder. "Go to Astral." It was not an order, but a handover. "Find the blue bird. Bring its feather to the spring atop that mountain." Lumiel. He said the name, and Celios slightly lowered his eyes. He prepared for the coming time. Leaving the kingdom behind. The gates opened. Knights advanced, swords ready. The Ryue surged forward. Clashing metal. Impact. Shouts. With all of it behind him, Eel headed east. Beyond the battle, but toward the center of the world. One who still knows. The mountains to Astral. The mountain path was steep and silent. The sky dark, the moon unseen. Soon, old scars appeared on the rock. Sword marks. Broken shields. Here, a battle had taken place. Lumiel's end. Higher up the mountain, on a windswept ledge, Eel found him. Armor shattered. Sword broken. Yet still upright. Kneeling, sword planted in the ground. Lumiel. Around him, traces of the Ryue remained. The struggle had been fierce. He had not turned back in fear, but in pursuit of his duty. And he had fallen. Eel knelt quietly. He did not draw his sword. Bowing his head. "You prepared, didn't you?" The wind passed through, answering in its own way. The path carried on. Lumiel fell here. But it was not in vain. His battle had shown the path this far. He laid down his life for the coming time. Eel stood. He was not stronger than Lumiel, but he stood in his place. This was what it meant to inherit. The blue bird appears. As he climbed, the air changed. Sound faded. Then, a faint light danced. The same glow as moonlight, yet warm somehow. The blue bird. At last, it appeared. No need to chase. It would not flee. Entrusted feather. The bird dropped a single feather, like a fragment of the moon. Eel received it with both hands. The tapestry on his chest glimmered faintly. The blue bird looked at me as if it had been waiting. Then it vanished. The guidance had ended here. The spring at the summit. At the mountain's peak, a small spring appeared. Clear water, reflecting no sky. Eel gently dipped the feather. The water rippled, shining with light. It was a sign of the beginning. Light flows again. The light overflowed from the spring, flowed down the mountain, became a river, and returned to the world. Moonlight began to circulate once more. The relay could not resist. They would not disappear. But they changed. The reason to remain in the shadows was lost. In the midst of battle. In the kingdom, swords still clashed. Yet the sky had brightened slightly. So slightly that no one noticed. And that was enough. The Night Kingdom had been ready for the coming time. And now, that readiness had meaning. Eel looked up at the summit sky. The moon still did not appear. But it would return. Lumiel had prepared. The kingdom had prepared. And he had fulfilled his role. With that alone, the world began to move. Light versus darkness. In a world where the moon circles. In a world where the moon makes its rounds. The night was not yet over. Darkness did not rule. And yet, the light had not fully returned. The world stood. Just before taking its next breath. All sound had fallen silent, leaving only choice behind. That was this night. Before the last dawn. The nightly kingdom of Aldinas stood wrapped in silence. Along the castle walls, countless figures were lined up. They were not shadows of darkness. They were human forms, encased in armor. Swords were clenched. Shields were raised. Strength filled their fingertips. Yet, not a single voice was raised. They were not suppressing fear. This silence itself was their resolve. If one listened closely, only two sounds remained. The scrape of cloth against the wind, and the faint tremble of breathing. The sky was dark. The moon had not yet returned. Low clouds hung heavy, stealing the stars from their place. Even so, no one stepped back. They knew why they stood here. Not to survive, not for victory, but so that what this kingdom had prepared for, in the face of the coming time, would not be wasted. Aldinas understood. This battle was not meant to end anything. It was a battle meant to be passed on. A night meant to leave a path toward a world where the moon would circle once more. What the darkness birthed. From far to the southeast, the ground trembled. At first, it was so small, it felt like an illusion. But in the next moment, the vibration rose clearly. From beneath their feet, low, heavy, rhythmic, unsettlingly alive. It was not thunder, not an earthquake. It was a heartbeat. The final power, chosen by the people of lingering shadow. They knew that once the light began to return, there would be no place left to flee. And so, at the edge of the world, they found it. An egg. A being that should never have hatched. One meant to be sealed in darkness and forgotten. Fear and despair can turn taboo into purpose. A dragon with two heads. One mouth unleashed a roar, shaking the air. Rage and rejection. The other breathed fire, scorching the land. Destruction and severance. Two wills. Two denials. Its form did not oppose the kingdom alone. It rejected the forests, the mountains, even the sky itself, as if declaring, the world will never return to what it was. This was not a monster born of darkness. It was the final choice of those who had nothing left but to cling to it. The night changed forever. The night's charge. A command rang out, short and sharp. The knights surged forward, as if casting fear aside. But the difference in power was unmistakable. Shields shattered. Spears snapped. Men were hurled aside. Even so, they did not retreat. This was a place where retreat was not allowed. The name of the war captain. The war captain. Gladios. He stepped forward. The dragon's tail roared. His shield shattered. Flames swept across the field. Spears burned black and fell away. Even so, Gladios remained standing. From his back, he drew a single sword. A blade passed down through generations of the kingdom. It had not slain many, but it had protected many. The end of the two-headed dragon. The dragon roared. 2 wills. 2 rages. But 1 sword was enough. Gladios took a single step forward. The blade he swung was not technique. It was resolve itself. 1 head fell. The other screamed. The dragon collapsed, its body crashing to the ground. The world regained its weight. The flight of the people of lingering shadow. At that moment, the sky changed. From in the clouds, a pale light. Moonlight. Incomplete. Yet undeniably, it had begun to return. The people of lingering shadow saw it and understood. They could no longer resist the light. They feared it, and they fled to the southeast, to the edge of the world, to remain within shadow. The moon circles. The clouds drifted apart, and the moon revealed itself. A broken moon. Yet it was enough. Its light bathed the kingdom, washed over forests, and crossed the mountains. The world became whole once more. Darkness did not vanish, but it no longer ruled. Eel's return. At the mountain's peak, Eel watched the moon. He knew it was over. He did not shout. He did not cry out. He simply lowered his head in silence. The world was saved. And that was enough. A gift from the kingdom. At Aldinas, Eel was welcomed. Instead, a single package. Inside, a dagger, old papers, and the kingdom's seal. Right. That was all. Celios said. To the village. Eel returned west. The elder fog forest. The stone-speaking road. The starless ridge. Moonlight reached them all. The beginning of the story. The village had not changed, but the night sky had. Eel sat at his desk and took up his pen. This is not a hero's tale. It is the story of a nameless youth, passing on what he received to the next. In closing, the moon continues to circle as long as someone prepares and someone else inherits. And those who read this story, too, may one day find themselves preparing for the time to come. Thank you so much for watching until now. Please leave your comments, opinions, or thoughts. If you enjoyed the story, please give it a thumbs up. See you in the next story. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel. happiness for all viewers.